Welcome to this tutorial for the daisy stitch, also known as the star stitch. My name is Lisa Ross of Paper Daisy Creations, and I use this stitch for the Garden Variety Mystery Knit Along Wrap. So I'm here to show you how to do that stitch. So you'll see right here, I've got all of these little daisy stitches or star stitches on a stockinette background. For the mystery wrap, you'll be working them on a garter stitch background, so I'm working on that right now to show you what that looks like. I've got my main color here, which is the dark blue, and I'm using this contrast color of the light yellow to work my daisies. I'm ready to work the next one. So I'm knitting my edge stitches. You will need to follow along in your pattern. And I'm ready to slip my first stitch right here. I'm slipping the yarn purlwise like this with the yarn in back of the work. So the yarn is going to be held toward the wrong side. And so depending on whether you're knitting the right side or the wrong side, that will determine where your yarn is. So this is being slipped with yarn in back. I knit 3, 1, 2, 3, slip one with yarn in back, 1, 2, 3. And now I want to be sure that these are all lining up. So I'm staggering the daisy stitches. So I want my slipped stitch to be directly above the daisy stitch from the previous row, which will be directly above the slipped stitch from the row below that. So that just keeps me on track and makes sure that I didn't miss an increase or didn't miscount somewhere. That just helps me line up my knitting correctly. Now, if you're using this stitch for a different pattern, it may be worked slightly differently. All right, so there we go. My first row is just a bunch of knit stitches with the slipped main color stitches in between. I'm going to flip it to the wrong side of the work. Get out my yarn. Let's put this over to the side. And I'm going to begin with my edge stitches, which for this pattern, or for this swatch, I'm just knitting these in garter stitch. You will, of course, be following along with your pattern. Now this time, when I come to those slipped stitches, I'm slipping those stitches with the yarn held in front of the work. It's still held to the wrong side so that I get these floats on the back of the shawl, but this time I need to hold it in front of the work while I'm knitting. So I slip that stitch. Now here's the tricky part. These next 3 stitches are going to be worked 3 times. I'm going to first purl those 3 together. So I purl into all 3 of those stitches at the same time. I don't want to pull this stitch too tightly. I don't want it to squeeze up right next to this other daisy stitch. I have to remember there's that slipped stitch in between. But those stay on the needles after I've purled those 3 together for the first time. I yarn over. And now I purl those 3 together one more time, just like that, and take it off my needle. So I started with 3 stitches, and I still have 3 stitches, but right now they're all grouped together. I slip the next stitch, and now I'm going to purl these 3 together again, because I'm working a new star stitch. Now, a few tricks that can help you. One is that you have these nice pointy tips on your needles where the needle is actually smaller, and it's easier when you're working at the end of the needle to fit your right hand needle into those stitches. So it helps to slide them down, but you don't want them to fall off the end of your left needle there. So what I usually do is hold them with this finger. Now, if you're an English style knitter or if you knit very differently than me, this may not be the best method for you. Daisy stitch or star stitch is a very common stitch, and there are actually a bunch of tutorial videos online. You can look up those. I suggest taking a look and seeing someone who has a similar knitting style to yours if this way does not work for you. So I'm holding on to those, sliding close to the end, and now what I'm doing is I'm taking my needle and I'm trying to loosen up those stitches just a little bit so that I can fit into all 3 of them. And sometimes it goes easier than others. So now I can easily go into all 3 of those stitches. I loosen them up, I can fit in there, I purl 3 together, yarn over, and going through one more time is much easier this time. Purl those 3 together, take them off, double check to be sure that you've got all 3 stitches on the needle. Slip one with yarn in front one more time. I am purling those 3 together, so I am sliding them towards the end of the needle, making sure I've got room. I go into all 3 stitches, purl 3 together. Do not pull this too tightly. Yarn over and purl 3 together one more time. Take it off of the needle, slip one with yarn in front, do it all again. So I'm purling those 3 together. Ooh, trying to get that last one. There we go. Loosen those. All right. So purl 3 together. Don't take them off yet. Yarn over, purl 3 together, take off all the stitches, and slip one with yarn in front. And now I am ending the end of my swatch right here, which for me is a couple purl stitches and a garter stitch border. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now. It doesn't quite look like a daisy stitch or a star stitch just yet. We have to work the next row before it's going to look like that. Now, the next row is easy to work because you're just knitting, but you do have to make sure that you're not missing any stitches. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm using my main color. I work my way to the first of those daisy stitches. So for me, I'm knitting across. Be sure you follow your pattern for the increases as listed. I have these 3 stitches right here, 1, 2, 3. I want to be sure I knit into each stitch. 1, 2, 3 daisy stitches. Double check, 1, 2, 3 daisy stitches. And here's my slipped stitch. So as I go, I'm checking to be sure. Let me move this yarn out of the way. Checking to make sure that I've knit all 3 of those daisy stitches. They're grouped tightly together, so you need to pull each one apart. Knit each of the daisy stitches and work your way to the end of the row. Make sure you're following the instructions for your pattern. That's just how to work the daisy stitches. And this is what it looks like. So here you can see I've got stockinette stitches in between the star stitches, or sorry, daisy stitches, as we're calling them for this pattern. Here you can see I've got garter stitch in between the daisy stitches. You can do either way, but for this pattern, you're going to be doing the garter ridges. And this is an important stitch for the Garden Variety Mystery Knit Along. If you still need the pattern, you can find links below for the mystery wrap. And my name is Lisa Ross. I'm the designer of the wrap. You may know me better as Paper Daisy Creations. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have fun knitting your wrap.